Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of this interview series, Psychedelic Birth. I am so excited to be bringing this incredible woman to you today, Miss Lindsey Courcelle. Did I say your last name right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, beautiful. And I just want to say that I have been, Lindsay and I have been kind of like weaving through each other's worlds only just recently. Um, and I have been really excited to learn more about the unique medicine that she's bringing into the world. She's doing profound work with women, and I'm just so impressed with all of the work that she's done on herself to be this most incredible, radiant woman that she is, leading the mission that she's leading on the planet. So, I can't wait to dive into this episode, and I would love to just open it up by asking Lindsay to share a little bit about yourself and your work in the world.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to connect with you. And my work in the world, I feel like I'm constantly redefining my little speech about what I do, my bio, but I am primarily a hands-on healer. I do body work, specializing in the fascia, and I've now kind of developed my own modality, for lack of a better word, called fascia alchemy, which combines John Barnes myofascial release and some other modalities, integrated positional therapy, just everything I've learned and kind of studied in the last 10 years in my own bodywork practice and brought into my work with women. And I love to work with the subconscious and the inner child. And so that hands-on healing is really my primary medicine that I share with the world. But now I've taken my work online and I lead classes and teach women how to work with their own fascia, how to do these self-care rituals for themselves with their breasts, with their yoni, just
Mm.
all over their bodies really. And I also now do a bit more of kind of like a coaching style where I'm really helping women open their bodies so that it can be this vessel that holds their business, which I think is really missing. There's a bit of a gap in the conversation around that. There's so much around strategy, but often our body is actually, it becomes a bottleneck if we don't tend to it. So that's kind of my newer work in the world that I'm experimenting with. And other than that, I'm a mother of three kids. They are 10, 7, and 1 3/4. And I have an amazing husband I've been with for 20 years. We live in Vermont. We live on a farm. We're starting to offer retreats, and I love my life.
I just love to hear that, especially during these times when we're
Yeah,
all supposed
it's
to be feeling in
important.
fear.
Yeah, no, it's really, I think it's really important for me to speak that, how much I love my life, because
It is important.
I, I feel very privileged and it's also what I've created. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And you get to stand as a beacon of what's possible when you follow your dreams and your calling and put in the work and stay devoted to creating the life of your dreams.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and I just want to talk a little bit about what you shared about preparing your body to be able to hold the expansion when you're, especially when you're an entrepreneur, because I wish that I would have known you existed in the beginning of my time as an entrepreneur, because I worked with mentors, did the masterminds, all the different coaching programs, and for years I just kept hitting a ceiling, like
Yeah.
over and over and over, to the point where I don't even know how I haven't gone insane. And I just had to figure it out on my own that, like, holy crap, like my body is literally rejecting the expansion because I don't feel safe enough for it. So
Yes.
it sounds like what you're doing is bringing light into an area that really freaking needs it in this industry. So I just want to say thank you. And I'm just grateful for all of the women that you get to help that don't have to struggle for as many years as I have having
Yeah.
you.
That's what I'm hoping for. I mean, I've also been in these mastermind spaces and I see women just talking about how, it's like every single person is talking about how they have migraines or period pain and things like this. And I'm like, you don't have to live like that, Like I'm so lucky that I don't have any chronic pain or dysfunction at this point in my life. As a 42-year-old, I feel better than I did when I was 30, probably, because
Mm,
I've just learned how to tend to myself and my fascia, my subconscious, to really kind of clear these stories out of my tissue and not let them have power over me anymore. I think that's a big part of it.
mm,
But that just creates space in our body, in our fascia for really like life force, God, source energy to flow through us. And then our business comes more easily. We just flow, like, I mean, it's like you just said, like, you don't do a lot of preparation for this because you can just let things flow through. And that's how
mm.
we really all should be functioning.
I agree. And even though I'm still pretty new to the world of fascia, I'm not new to tending to the body and taking immaculate care of yourself.
Yeah.
I've just come from a different lineage, if you will. I am an Ayurvedic practitioner. I studied in India. So I come at it with from a little bit of a different angle, but I do similar work in, teaching people self-care rituals and empowering people, because I know that's a big thing that you do, is you help empower people to live their best life. Um, so it's great to have you here today.
And I
Uh,
love Ayurveda, and I think that there are so many different ways for us to do these things. I think what you're saying is it's still in alignment because it's just that the more we just are only focused on thinking our way to, our next income level or how to grow our business and not involving our body in it, not treating our body more like a machine that kind of holds our
mm,
brain, the less easy it will be to, like you said, like you'll just keep hitting these ceilings and then eventually you get the message that your body's trying to tell you like, oh, you have to pay attention to me.
yeah, after many years, if you're lucky, you figure it out.
Yeah.
Unless you have a Lindsey to just figure it out for you exactly what is the bottleneck. Um, Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about your birth experience, but I really want to dive in a little bit more to talk about fascia because I know there's going to be some people watching that don't even know what fascia is yet.
Yeah.
And I am just like obsessed with this new area of research, if you will. And we can tie it into this, like in particular with the health of the pelvic bowl, because I know that if you have good fascia before you have a baby, you're probably going to have a better pregnancy and a better birth experience. So let's just turn a little bit to bring your experience with pregnancy and birth to the table. And if you remember, any specific pieces of it that pertain to the altered state that you're in, especially when you're going into labor, I would love to hear a little bit about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just the basics of fascia is it's a head to toe web of connective tissue, so it runs totally without interruption through our body, through and between every cell, supporting all of our organs, surrounding all of our muscles and bones. And so our whole body is essentially fascia, and we're like this gel-like liquid crystal, just super cool, conducting electricity. It's what holds our consciousness. It's our like the shock absorber in our bodies. And it's really, really dynamic. And there's so much to share about fascia. And I'm learning more and more all the time. But it's also the place where we hold emotions that we haven't processed and trauma and
Mhm.
stories. I mean, I truly believe that this is the main place we hold it. And I think for women, I mean, this is really my belief that we hold a lot of this in our pelvic bowl because it's a container. It's shaped like a bowl and it's meant to hold our energy and our life force. And so when our pelvic bowl gets filled up with all the stories, all the things that happen to us over the course of our whole life, it
Mm.
takes up too much space, and it makes it so that our bodies either deal with dysfunction, or if we're pregnant, we maybe don't have as much space for baby to be in best position. And, just it could be anything. And so for me, I found myofascial release, I would say, let me just think for a second. I think it was um, basically like 2 years before I had my daughter, my first daughter. And in those 2 years, or in that year before I got pregnant, I was doing a lot of trainings. I was receiving a lot of fascia work, but also things were very chaotic in my body, because this is what happens in the fascia: is as we are releasing all these stories and peeling back layers, there's chaos, and then eventually it reorganizes. And so that was happening in my body in the year before conception. And actually, I'd had a huge upper limit that I hit in my life, just as my husband and I got married, and there was a lot more stability, and my childhood was very patterned for instability. So stability felt really uncomfortable to me. And so we had a lot of chaos within our relationship. And then suddenly I was pregnant. And so this is how I came into my first pregnancy. It wasn't like many years of calm and really settled relationship and conscious conception. It wasn't really like that. And with my daughter, I ended up having a pretty challenging birth with her. Um, I think that I had started to open my fascia, but it was just at the very beginning of that journey. And mostly the reason that my birth was pretty intense with her was that I was induced. I went to 42 weeks, and even though I was working with midwives, they wanted to induce me. And at that point, I knew about the cascade of interventions that might happen, and I didn't want to be induced, but I also felt really stuck and didn't really have the energy to advocate for myself, as is the case with so many women that get into those situations. I hear it all the time from my clients. And,
Mm.
and then the fear mongering of like, if you go past 42 weeks, it's more risk of stillbirth, all these things. So when I think about that, those psychedelic sort of states within our birthing time, I feel like I could not access that with my first birth. I feel like I was so inundated with the physical pain of being induced with Pitocin that it was,
Mm.
I mean, certainly there were aspects of it that were, they were out of body experiences. I eventually did have to really kind of dissociate and leave my body in order to feel like I could survive that experience. It was just really, really intense, and I was vomiting a lot, and it
Mm.
was not the natural process. It was not how it was meant to be. And
Mm.
and then I was left with a lot of disconnection at the end of that experience, where I was so tired after my daughter finally came out, when she was finally birthed. I was so tired I could not even hold her. I just felt
Mm.
like the whole thing was quite traumatizing for me. Um, and I also went into birth feeling like it was going to be somewhat easy. I mean, I knew labor was always challenging, but I just was kind of like, I'm in touch with my body. My expectations were that things were going to just be chill. And so it was quite a big learning for me in that. And the biggest learning for me with that birth was how hard I was on myself, and how much I kind of blamed myself for it not being what I expected. And my daughter, from the time she was, 2, she started saying things like, "Mommy, do you love yourself?" And she would just like, her medicine was like to help me love myself, and to recognize that I needed to love myself even though things didn't go quite the way I planned. And so after that experience, I mean, I would say that the medicine of that for me was that I now am able to hold women when they've had challenging birth experiences, like without
Mm.
if everything had gone easily with all three of my births, I wouldn't be able to relate to a lot of the women that I work with. And so now I can relate to the women that, whether they end up with cesarean or anything else, it's like I know what it's like to have a birthing experience that is not what you hoped for. And it was
Mm.
entirely different with my son. So I had a lot of healing to do in those years after my daughter. I ended up with a diagnosis of cervical dysplasia. I know that it was just because I was needing to heal and spend time healing. And the doctors were telling me I needed to have a LEAP procedure, and I just intuitively knew that I needed to be pregnant again and birth my son. And so I went about with lots of body work. I learned I did receive some internal pelvic work. I learned and received a lot of my abdominal massage. I received craniosacral therapy. I just went all in on healing my body and getting support from a lot of women and also doing work with myself. And when it was time to birth my son, not only had the cervical dysplasia just totally cleared up partway through pregnancy, everything was fine, which was so great. And of course, my intuition knew that was going to be the case. And my son came super quickly, and it was like a less than 3 hour birth. And so and that birth, I was listening. I actually chose to go back to the hospital, which in hindsight, I'm like, why did I do that? This birthing center with midwives. But I think I was so nervous from that experience with my daughter that I couldn't quite claim home birth and be in my power with that. And so I went back to that hospital, but it was a great experience because I was hardly there. I was there for 45 minutes before my son was born, and the 2 hours before I was listening to reggae and just like moving my hips and just feeling like, okay, I know I can get through like another contraction, just, I wasn't thinking, I was just really in that like more psychedelic state of just like allowing my body to move, knowing that I was bringing baby down. I remember my friend who was there to be doula and support just said like, let that energy come down through your pelvis. And I could just feel that like as soon as I did that, it was that fetal ejection response. And he just kind of like, when I got to the hospital, they're like, okay, you're ready to push. And I was like, what? Like I was shocked, after my first experience. And so that was just a beautiful, really healing birth. And then I wasn't expecting to have any more babies. I felt like I was done having babies. And then, I don't know, 4.5 years after my son was born or something like that, I could feel this little spirit wandering around outside my body. And I was, my husband and I were questioning, like, okay, do we say yes to this little spirit? And we did, and conceived my third baby, my daughter. And at that point, I knew absolutely like I was going to birth this baby at home on our land. I knew I wanted nothing to do with the medical system at that point. And I wasn't quite, I definitely wanted women there supporting me. I've always been a fan of having support from women, whether that's like in my business, whether that's birth, I just love being with women and having them support me. And I had at this point, I've like really done a lot of work with my fascia, between my son and my daughter. I had like reclaimed my orgasm, which I'd lost for those years after my first baby and a little bit after my second. Like I was struggling to orgasm and feel pleasure. So I'd like found that again. I'd really like reclaim my power in my pelvic bowl. I just felt like so much energy flowing through me. And then when I was about to have my daughter, and going into labor with her, it was just a beautiful experience. Like I could feel my power. I could feel how she was very likely going to be my last baby that I birthed. I mean, I have no plans to have any more babies at this point. I think I'm officially done having babies, even though like I love babies and she's amazing and just such good medicine for our whole family. So part of me, there's a part of me, of course, that's like, ooh, that would be nice, another one. But no, I think I'm past that point. And my experience with her was just so sweet to be at home, right in our living room. And my son and daughter were asleep upstairs, but right before she was birthed, my husband went up and brought my son down, and he was snuggling on my husband's lap. And my daughter was like, her head was like right there as my baby was coming out. And they were both so excited to see what the baby's sex was. And we did the cord, I can't think of the right name, but like with the candles to burn the cord burning. And it was just such a sweet experience. And then, like, the way my daughter is, having been born at home and never leaving, like, we didn't go for any pediatrician appointments, or we just didn't leave the house for a long stretch. And just her being safe and feeling so like she's just her nervous system is patterned for just like calm. I mean, she's got a big fiery personality too, but like she's always slept really well. We've just had such an easy go of it, and I can just see how like that experience really was imprinted into her because of her birth. So I feel like that was a lot of talking. Let me know what you have questions about.
No, that was so great. I love hearing your story. It is really empowering. And I know that there's a lot of women who are going to resonate with a lot of different pieces of your story because unfortunately, the majority of women don't get the birth experience that they really want
Yeah.
because it's just the way that the culture is right now. We're not properly educated and, it hasn't been safe for a woman to really be in her power for, I don't know, thousands of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like a really big deal. Um, and I love that you were able to move through the journey of like being completely traumatized to like fully reclaiming what you didn't get to have during your first birth. Um, I've just been learning more and more about how much the atmosphere of your mind
Mm,
affects the way that the baby grows.
yeah.
Um, and I have seen it firsthand in people knowing the history of their mother when they were pregnant with them. Like, for instance, I know someone whose mom was in a lot of fear when she was carrying her, and she had a hard, like, it almost seemed like the baby didn't want to come out. Like,
Mm,
the baby was
mhm.
scared to emerge. And then, like, throughout her life, um, like I could just see the imprint of the way that the pregnancy went and
Yeah.
like kind of like holding you back, if you will, because you grew in like in a mom that was full of fear. And so like this like pregnancy and birth is like so much more than we have been taught. And that's why
Oh,
I like having these types of conversations because when you birth right, that's literally what I feel like is the very root that heals the whole freaking planet right now. Like
yeah.
when mothers are able to birth in power, we have healthy babies, they feel safe. Like you said, their nervous systems are patterned a completely different way. And then they grow up to be a totally different type of human that's like way more healthy than most of us got.
Yeah. I'm just having this huge aha moment because I've often thought about with my son. There were a couple things about my pregnancy with him where that I have regrets around. One being that because of this cervical dysplasia and the fear, I definitely carried him with a considerable amount of fear, at least until that 6 month point, because my doctors just continued to tell me that I might have cervical cancer, and
Mm.
it's just like so not helpful.
Bless you.
And I did a colposcopy with him where they, take a tiny little sample of your cervix when I was 6 months pregnant, which I just think like, wow, that had to be so, like even though I had a conversation with my body and said like, this is what we're doing so we can get past this fear. And like, I accepted and felt in my power receiving that procedure. It was still a little chunk of my cervix being taken out when I was pregnant. And I just think like, oh my gosh, like how did that imprint on my son? And my son is definitely, he's interesting. Like I obviously love him so much. He's very fiery little guy. He's like incredibly in tune with the earth and animals, and he's a little hunter, and like he can catch anything. And but he is a bit more like his nervous system is a bit more like quickly activated. And I just wonder like how much that has to do with his experience being in the womb, along with birthing in the hospital. I would say like the one really negative experience we had with that. And this is again, like it's amazing for me to look back and see like, wow, I had learned a lot between my daughter and my son, but like still there were so many things that I hadn't figured out because what happened with him is they did the little heel prick, which is very common in hospitals, to take some blood. And it was this horrendous experience where they couldn't get enough blood. And he was like crying, and I'm standing there weeping. And then eventually I was like, no, like, give me my baby. We're not doing this, you know? And I just think about that, like that experience for him of like being violated, you know,
Yeah.
immediately after, within a few days of being born, and how that affected him. But what you were just saying really like unlocked something about my oldest daughter, which is that she is very concerned with time and being late. And I just had this aha of like, oh my gosh, no wonder, because like she was on her own timeline and they were like, no, fuck that. Like you're coming out now, you know? So she's like, she has a little, she's 10 and she has like this little bit of anxiety. It's not, I don't know, it's borderline anxiety, but like for example, on Easter, like we were going to a friend's house for like a party, and then we were going to my mother-in-law's house, and she was like calculating the time of like how long we were going to be at each place, and I'm like, you're a little too like concerned about the timeline here. But now I'm just having this aha of like, oh my gosh, it's my pregnancy and her birth that like might have patterned that in her like 100%, versus like my little one who just like everything happened on its own timeline. There was no like rupture of her trust, or you know, I mean, this is what makes me like want to have more babies, because I'm like, I know it can't always be that way, but I'm like, oh, it's just like she's just such a little blessing, and I love my other kids as well, and I wish I'd made some better choices, and you know, we'll see how it affects them over time.
Sure. Man, I could talk to you probably for like 5 hours straight about this stuff. There's so many different things that I want to go through, but I also just want to be respectful of time. Do you have a few more minutes that you
Yeah,
can?
yeah, for
Okay,
sure. Yeah.
beautiful. Um, so it's been like what, a year and a half since your last birth?
Yeah, year and 3 quarters. She turns 2 in June.
Nice. So for anyone who hasn't been pregnant yet, or who wants to, what I want, like, aside from just like getting the amazing like experiences, because your story is so rich and like there's so much wisdom in it that's going to help empower the women who watch this. But I want to hear like, what is it like? What's the actual experience like when labor starts? Like, how does that
Yeah.
feel? Like, how do you experience that? And I know most of it you're not even going to be able to describe in words.
I know. Yeah, that is kind of the hard thing. But I mean, I would say that even though my son's birth was fairly quick, there was still some intervention because they swept my membrane. So my only experience without any real intervention, and that was like, again, like I was past my due date. I was at 41 weeks. They didn't see enough fluid. It was like the one time that they did some ultrasound in that pregnancy. Just, you know, these things, it's like they're getting more information, but to what end? I don't really. With my daughter, with my last baby, I did no ultrasounds. I didn't do the glucose test. I just like, I had an amazing home birth midwife that is a dairy farmer that is just like, has magic hands, and was just so great at being like, if you want to do these things, you can get some information and we can work with that. And if not, it's totally fine. So anyway, on that note, what it feels like to actually go into labor. And I would say like my experience with that, I will talk about my last birth. Um, I I get very tired when I'm pregnant and end up taking a lot of naps, as many women do. And with my daughter, I just woke up and could feel that I was leaking some fluid and that my water was breaking. And um, it was really sweet with my big kids and my husband. We all put on these like sweet little rose temporary tattoos. And I just was like, okay, we're going into the birth portal, you know, lit the candle, like kind of prepared.
Mhm.
And it started, you know, it started coming in waves. And um, I kind of already knew the positions that were going to be I guess the positions that were going to be the most comfortable for me, which were to be on my knees and kind of like leaning over the back of a couch.
Hmm.
And yeah, I guess this last time around, I just didn't have any of that fear around the pain with the contractions because I knew that every time those waves were coming, it was bringing my baby closer to me. So I really tried to just lean into, knowing that there is an end in sight. And
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I can't, it's so hard to think about like how I would describe birth to someone that hasn't had a baby because it is just this, it's a major surrendering and just a trusting that my body could do exactly what it needed to do. And I will say that, in the years before my daughter, and especially in my pregnancy with her, I had lots of orgasms. I really think that that was like key to my birth being as lovely as it was as a I think I was 40. I can't remember if I was 40 or 41. I have to do the math, but somewhere around there when I had her. Should be easy for me to calculate that, but in this moment it's feeling hard. And my body just felt great. I felt like I
Mm.
just opened really naturally. It was like, I can't even remember how many hours, maybe like 6 hours until she was born from the start of labor. So it was just this like not too long, not too short, not too intense, just this beautiful opening.
Mm.
And for me, it's always just been really important to just kind of let my body move the way it wants to and have the support of women and really and my husband, but like especially women, to have someone put their hand on my sacrum or just kind of like I had a
Mm.
friend that also came and she had some elderflower that she like sprinkled the dew from the elderflower on my face, and it was just a lovely lovely experience. But I don't know how to answer that question because I just can't even like think about how to describe it.
That's okay. That was the perfect answer. I I am resurrecting a practice that I consider ancient and that like basically all indigenous knew at one time, which was that when women bleed, they're in an altered state of consciousness.
Yes.
And I know that, menstruation is a lot of things, and one of the things that it is your body practicing for birth. So I look at menstruation as like practice for pregnancy and birth. And I have been specifically working with the altered states that happen when your hormones shift during that time. So I know that, like, if that's the practice of it, that when you actually get into the birth portal, you're like thrown into the deep end when it comes to the altered state that you're in. And I also know that, coming from a background of uh, plant medicine, I have quite a bit of experience doing plant medicine ceremonies, which I don't do anymore because I just lean into menstruation, honestly. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I know that, where was I going with that? Oh, I know that when you're altered like that, you're really vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Really vulnerable, which is why it's so necessary for you to be in a space, an environment that feels safe for you. And if anyone's around you, to have like deep trust in them because you aren't in a state where you can make sound decisions when
Yeah.
you're in labor. Like that's not where your energy's not up in your brain. It's like
Yeah.
in your body and like in your womb and your yoni and your cervix. So it's it's this very vulnerable, altered state that women enter when they're going into the birth portal and basically like moving between dimensions, as far as I can understand, that makes us susceptible to sabotage inside of our birth experiences. And I believe that birth needs to be looked at like a freaking sacred spiritual ceremony and
Yeah.
approached like that and like prepared for like that. Like I'm going into a journey state and I'm not going to be myself
Yeah.
until baby comes out. And then from what I can see, once the baby emerges, you're a new woman too.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And oh, what did I want to say about that? Something. Ooh. Oh, I feel like I lost it. Oh, just about it was something about bleeding. Oh, it'll come to me. It'll come to
Okay.
me. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it's interesting right now. Like my daughter, she's not bleeding yet, but I'm I'm I have my bleed back now, a few cycles since being postpartum, and I can feel that altered state more now, like the older I get and kind of the more just in tune with my body. I really wish I could think of what I wanted to say about that.
That's all right. I want to say that we have been doing whatever we can to basically survive the era of patriarchy. And so
Hmm.
this altered state and like so much of what makes us women, we have literally had to suppress
Yeah.
for thousands of years in order to survive. And so for most modern women, it's so deep in hiding inside of you that you can't even access it because the culture does not support us to just like take 5 days off a month. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say was just like, I was going to say, think about how many women just hate their bleed and then they go into their birth and like, how can you have a great birth if you've been hating your bleed for years and years and just feeling like against your body when you're bleeding? That is what I was going to say. And I think that's kind of what you're saying too. You know, it's like
Totally.
the system is broken and, you know, many of us are reclaiming that, especially for our daughters and for younger women. But like, it is just, it's so important to love our body during this, you know, these beautiful windows of massive, I don't know, just opening. Like it's just so beautiful what can come through when you're bleeding, and of course, like when you're birthing too. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and you said something that I just want to highlight here because from all of my experience and education and understanding the way that I understand the female body and the capacity to open in any sense is it's pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
The the female body was wired for pleasure. And like as far as I can see, there's like no limit to the capacity of pleasure that a woman is able to feel. And that really feels like the secret sauce to
Hmm.
like open a woman's body. It's pleasure. So I'm like, man, like lots of orgasms while you're pregnant sounds like probably what all of the souls want their moms to be experiencing while they're in their bellies, right?
Yeah, not fear and not, you know, all and not like, I mean, also that was the thing with my third baby is like I just didn't try so hard with all the things, you know. I was eating sushi and I was, you know, I was just like I was just listening to my body and feeling pleasure and like eating things that were pleasurable and not worrying about listeria, you know, or like whatever it was. Like I was just trusting and listening to my body and feeling a lot of pleasure and it really worked out well for me.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that. Thank you. I'm getting so much from just hearing your story and some of your feedback. So I just want to talk about one more thing and then we can start wrapping up. But I know that you do a lot of pelvic bowl work. That's also something that I teach. However, you're definitely further along in embodiment with that practice. I also teach deep tissue internal massage, but I do not have the awareness of like the fascia system or the level of experience that you have with women. Um, so I know that a lot of women like really struggle with their pelvic bowl health after birth, even if it wasn't a really traumatic birth. Like the yoni, I have seen just like suffering
Yeah.
so much. And like so many women have a hard time, like not peeing their pants after they have a baby. And like there's like just not enough talk about the fact that this is something that you can correct on your own at home.
Yeah.
So um, I just want to ask you to if you have any advice or guidance for women who have experienced damage to their pelvic bowl from birth or anything really, like what do they do to help fix it and bring the vitality back to their pelvic bowl?
Yeah, absolutely. I did have this experience. My first birth was traumatic, but I did have this stretch of I would say probably 5 years after my daughter was born where I had hardly any orgasms, which
Mm.
to go, actually when I was first becoming sexually active, or orgasms came easily for me, and I even like ejaculated, and it was just like somehow pleasure was easy for me, and I'm blessed in that or whatever. I don't, who knows. So then to go from that to like not being able to feel it for 5 years was intense. And I have also had minor bits of prolapse. I've had like minor incontinence. I've dealt with a lot of the issues that many of my clients deal with.
Mm.
And yeah, it's a huge problem. And I think it can be so simple. So, I mean, certainly like any sort of internal massage, I think is better than not doing anything. And my type of fascial work that I do is also just very simple. It's, inserting your fingers, feeling for a spot that is tender or hot, and
Mhm.
really connecting there. And there's kind of like a specific way that I teach women this in my classes, but like really just kind of letting your fingers sink in as if they're sinking into clay and connecting with that spot, and really not forcing through the tissue. That's an important aspect of, because the internal pelvic work that I teach, I learned through John Barnes' myofascial release. That was my teacher. He's recently passed. But he was an amazing man, just very in touch with the feminine.
Mhm.
And I had him work internally with me as well. And I just know that he was onto something with his fascial work. And then applying it to the internal pelvis, it just makes so much sense. It's like just a different access point
Mhm.
to all the places that women often have pain, like, or dysfunction. And so just applying that gentle pressure, holding there, allowing your fingers to sink in and just holding and waiting 3 to 5 minutes at a minimum, sometimes even 10 minutes in one place. And what you'll feel if you do that is that your fingers might start to almost have like a very subtle movement. You can feel an unwinding under your fingers, like you can feel the tissue starting to kind of very subtly unwind. So, like for me, like when I'm doing this work with other women, I can definitely feel the unwinding happening. I can feel it in my own body as well. I was just thinking today I worked with a woman, and I just barely touched her cervix, which I could see was way off to her left side. And so as soon as I touched her cervix, and this is not with very much pressure, I'm not really sinking into the cervix. That's one place I'm just kind of energetically connecting.
Yeah.
As soon as I touched there, it just started to unwind. And we had some conversations around like what might be coming up there.
Mhm.
She'd had an abortion. She'd had kind of like a sexual assault. She'd been raped by her stepfather. There were like big things coming up for her. And her cervix needed to unwind that. The tissue needed to move and kind of get back to its flow state, which the way I feel it in the body is like kind of more of this like figure 8 motion, or there's like a pulsing that feels like very resonant as opposed to kind of like sporadic, pulse, 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 and then it's slower pulse. I don't know how to describe it, but like when you're
Yeah.
working on yourself, if you just hold in these spots, usually that you will go from feeling this tender spot to suddenly it will just soften. And you might have emotion come up, you might have memory come up, you might not have it attached to any particular thing, But it's amazing like how much we can do ourselves. So it really is that simple. And I have a 2 hour class that teaches about it, but like you don't really need it. It really is that simple. Just kind of exploring in your own body and trusting that just through that patience, and like I really think that this may have been, at least in some lineage, the way hands-on healing was done was just this like very slow, holding in one place, not a lot of stroking, not a lot of movement. I know it's like different than, like Abhyanga or something like that, where there's like a lot of movement, but I think that this was just somewhere this was happening where people were just holding someone's body, bringing their loving intention to it or to their own body, and then just waiting for the tissue to release on its own. That's kind of the magic of the fascial work I do.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I was so sad to hear that John Barnes left his body. I was fortunate enough to get a few MFR sessions several years ago, and just I was like blown away how big of a difference there was in my body after one session.
Yeah.
Like total reorienting of tissue, and I just was like, what is this magic? This like massage never does this. Chiropractic
Yeah.
never do this. This
Hmm.
is what actually everybody needs, is this very specific kind of working with your fascia. So I'm a little bit envious that you got to work with John. And
Yeah, it
great.
was really special.
Yeah.
And I love massage and I love receiving all different types of body work. And I don't think there's only one way, but I do think that
Sure.
working with the fascia is a very special way. And it does usually make people feel pretty different afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's effective, and I just don't
Effective.
think there's anything else like it, honestly.
Yeah.
And thank you for the tips that you shared. I would love to maybe include a link with this video to your class if you have that available, um, and any other ways that the women who are watching this can get closer to you and learn from you, because the type of medicine that you're embodying is like really needed. And there's so many people that don't even know that these types of solutions exist.
Yeah.
And I know how profound it is. The very first time that I was introduced to doing internal work on myself, I literally woke up the next day and felt like I had a new yoni. I was just like, what? How is this stuff so powerful? This is freaking amazing. I
Yeah.
had one woman do some work internally for me one time, and it literally shifted things in my head.
Oh,
Like my
yeah.
ear opened up in a way that it hadn't been before. And I was just like, what is happening right now? This is crazy.
Yeah, it's so special in that, especially that mirroring of the jaw and the pelvis. And yeah, yeah, I'm happy to share. And I do have, a handful of different classes. I do have one that's specific for pregnancy, myofascial self-care for pregnancy. And then I have an internal pelvis one and,
Great.
various things. So I will definitely share them.
Yay. Well, I'm probably gonna have to take that one for pregnancy because I'm starting to get ready. I've been pre
Oh,
I've been preparing for pregnancy for my whole life, but I'm starting to get to the point where I am like actually doing more to prepare myself. So I would love to
that's super
learn
exciting.
myofascial help for when I'm pregnant.
Yeah, the great thing with that class is it's kind of a little smattering of all of my classes and I taught it when I was 8 months pregnant, so I have a big pregnant
Nice.
body in that class.
Great. Oh my gosh, I will love that. Maybe I'll wait to do it until I have a pregnant belly.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's exciting.
All right. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I think that we covered a lot. Um, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your radiant self with us. This has been such a great talk. I knew that I was just going to love talking to you. I could talk to you for hours more. There are so many different things that we could unpack, but
I feel that way too.
this is perfect for today. Thank you to everyone who is tuning into this, and I will make sure to include links for everything you need to get in closer proximity with Lindsay and learn from her. under this video. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to bringing you the next one.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you, Lindsay. You're so welcome. Thank you for coming. Aloha, everyone.